This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 42, about Jessica Jones, episode 12, aka Take a Bloody Number. Welcome back, Defenders. This is episode 42 of Defenders TV Podcast about Jessica Jones, episode 12, aka Take a Bloody Number. I'm Derek, I'm one of your hosts.
I'm John, one of your other hosts.
And rounding out the troop, I'm Chris.
Welcome back.
Yes. We're here in the deli counter where we need to take a number. Number 5.
It just sounds so wrong. It's like, take a number. Yeah, I can do that. Take a bloody number. It's either you're swearing or something's really wrong with that deli counter.
Absolutely bloody steaks. Medium rare.
Well, welcome back, guys. Really good to be here talking about the penultimate episode of the Netflix series Jessica Jones. We've gone through 11 episodes, obviously, so far. If you haven't heard those episodes, you can hear them all by going to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, where you can subscribe to our episodes and hear everything we're talking about all through Jessica Jones. This episode obviously will be spoiler-filled. We'll be talking about everything to do with this episode of Jessica Jones. If you want to send us feedback on our episodes of Jessica Jones or any of the other shows that we cover, all of our Marvel shows and movies, you can send us feedback to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. And if you're not an Apple person and want to subscribe to the podcast, you can subscribe to us in any good podcast catcher. Just go and search for Defenders TV Podcast on Beyond Pod, Stitcher,
Podcast Addict.
Yeah, any other good
Player FM.
Or any other good podcast catcher, definitely. You can also find us on flickeringmyth.com as our episodes get posted. Guys, I think we can talk about this week's episode. What did you think overall?
A tale of two halves, I reckon.
Right.
I think this is the slow build-up to, obviously, the final episode. And I reckon it needed it as well. It was good to see this investigation. It felt more investigative. It wasn't what I was necessarily expecting, but overall I liked it. And I think it will play nicely with the final episode. So it's almost like a two-parter, a double header.
Right. Chris?
Yeah, I was really surprised about how subdued this was for a penultimate episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really, for me, it felt like nearly 3/4 of this was just really slow. Now, John just said, talking about it as an investigatory type episode. Yeah, okay. Now, looking back that way, but there was points I was like, get on with it.
Right, really?
Like, literally, Homer would be on the back of the TV show just going, get on with it! But it all was such a huge build-up to that aha moment, which
Absolutely.
we'll probably get to later.
Yeah, I'd say for me, similar thoughts. I think some of the episode I was kind of feeling a bit like, where's this going? I don't really know why they're doing the investigation as much as they are, why it's lingering with the two characters so much, and then the reveal at the end, I suppose, was a nice shocking moment that put everything back into perspective for me as to why they were doing what they were doing with the episode. But overall, I did enjoy it. I think we'll get into our synopsis for the episode. So again, this episode was aka Take a Bloody Number. I just like saying that. It was written by Hilly Hicks Jr., who's one of the producers of the show. And this episode was directed by Billy Gerhardt, who's well known to fans of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because he directed a few episodes of that show. He also directed episodes of Walking Dead and directed 4 episodes of Torchwood Miracle Day. So a nice Doctor Who connection in there with John Barrowman, and obviously he was involved in Doctor Who. So yeah, really interesting to have him involved in Jessica Jones.
Think they ever met before?
What's the link with John Barrowman?
John Barrowman was the lead in Torchwood.
And
who was in Doctor Who.
Who was in Doctor Who, the character.
Yeah.
Captain Jack.
Jessica Jones.
No, I
know that.
Yeah,
I know
and
that
he met
bit,
David
but
Tennant. And David Tennant,
okay,
there
okay.
you go. And we're keeping this in.
Okay, sorry. No, I know all that connection, but
We swear we actually do know what we're talking about, people.
We do,
It's just
yes.
every now and
Yes.
again. You know those the
sometimes I get confused.
Yes.
Yeah,
We're not just
I was gonna
looking
say
for
brain
connections
fart.
here. We're not just looking for connections here. These connections do exist, I promise.
No, but all of a sudden I was transported to a Green Arrow podcast.
Oh gosh,
That would have been the connection. Speaking of John Barrowman,
I'm definitely going to categorically say, despite the fact that we do a DC podcast as well over on Gotham TV podcast, I will never do a Green Arrow podcast. Maybe a Flash one. Maybe a Flash one where there's a crossover
I like
into
the Arrow or the Green Arrow.
He's not. He is the Green Arrow now.
Yeah.
He's
Apparently, the city needed something different, so they put green at the front.
Yeah.
I think that worked. I remember when they went Britain and went up Great Britain.
Exactly. Well,
That G word makes it all right.
Although I absolutely loved the episode with Constantine and
I
Arrow.
loved
That
it.
was a great
I love
episode.
Arrow, or the Green Arrow.
No, see,
It's great, like, relaxation TV. Anyway, I think we digress.
I've got a drinking problem. Speaking of characters,
I love Lorelai.
but speaking of characters with a drinking problem, let's get on to Jessica Jones for our penultimate episode.
Exactly.
what a segue.
What a segue.
Pretty good. John, do you want to tell us what we got?
Sure. With AKA, take a bloody number. Luke reveals to Jessica that he was ordered by Kilgrave to destroy his bar, as the hunt for Kilgrave reunites Jessica with Luke, as bridges are built over the death of Luke's former wife Reva, as he forgives her of any blame. Meanwhile, Simpson has vanished at the hands of Dr. Kozlov, just as Trisha's mother presents unexpected information to her daughter about a mysterious company, IGH, who are responsible for Simpson and seemingly another important person in Trisha's life. All the while, Kilgrave is forcing his father, Albert, to concoct a way to increase and expand his control in order that he might affect Jessica once again. As Jessica and Luke go in search of leads at a nightclub, Kilgrave appears and unleashes an unforeseen power upon Jessica that culminates in a very different kind of shootout. So I just have to explain my Australian accent. Obviously, there are so many Australians in this series. What with Trish and Malcolm all being played by Australians and Simpson as well.
Yeah.
I just couldn't resist the bloody. They say it so well.
Yeah, and Chris, that's an Australian accent.
Right, okay. It makes more sense now.
It sounds like my Cockney accent and my Welsh accent.
Yes, exactly.
We did get a comment on Twitter from one of our listeners who said that they almost spat up their coffee when
and my hillbilly
when
accent
they
as
heard
well.
your hillbilly accent, yes. Excellent. So, the way we cover our episodes, if you don't know by now, we'll say it again. Why not? Only two more to say this in, I suppose. Way we cover
The next one, and the next one,
Yep,
and the next one.
the next series, yeah. Absolutely. The way we cover our episodes is we take our top 5 points of the episode, some good, some bad, and hopefully by talking about those top 5 points each, we will cover the entire episode. Chris, do you want to kick us off with your first point about this episode?
Okay, I'm going to actually completely veer away from what most people will assume we're going to kick off this episode with.
Okay.
I'm going to start with a tender moment.
Oh, very good.
And I'm talking about the moment on the rooftop.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, completely. It was just the Luke and Jessica had that really great scene where we believed they were dealing with all the issues. And Luke basically forgiving Jessica for the death of Reva. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to make sure I get this. I'll say it every day for as long as you need to hear it. That was just so powerful.
It was beautiful, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it was a genuinely sweet moment. It got close to a hammy level or a rom-com level, but then they literally, her face or almost like a chick flick, and I apologize for using that term, and they just cut it before it got corny. And I think that's what made it special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a genuinely, and I think I've said it twice now, genuinely sweet moment where you're like, we're getting, in the penultimate episode, we're getting some resolutions. And it was the end of that arc.
Yeah.
Or so we believed.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think
what an evil, evil man Kilgrave is. That scene was beautiful. This is where I kind of perked up and went, oh, this is what the episode is about. We needed this episode between Luke and Jessica finally resolving their issues. I think had said when they did their fight and break up that there is no possibility these two characters could get back together again. And yeah, I loved this scene. I thought it was really, really sweet. And then Kilgrave pulls the rug out from under the audience and says that he scripted the entire thing.
And I think that's what really showed the pathetic nature of Kilgrave even more, is that he was, I think it was the line, it was like, that sexual tension, that's you and me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, no, wait, no.
I know.
Oh.
And then Luke says to her, you killed my wife, how could I ever forgive you for that?
Yeah.
And again, you're wondering, is that the puppetry of Kilgrave? Again, telling Luke what to say to her when they have this confrontation. Has he told her, you now need to say to her, all you told her was a lie. You don't forgive her for the death, and everything I've given you is scripted. So it does leave a lot of again some hanging strands for the next episode.
And that's not an annoyance for me, because you expect, like, this is not we have yet, as of the whatever date this is in January 2016.
16th of January.
Yeah. 16th, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting blind. We've yet to hear there's going to be a season 2 of Jessica Jones.
That's right, yeah.
So and we've yet to hear whether Jessica Jones will be a main character like Luke Cage in Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Right. So what we're ending up here with is, unless everything is resolved in the next episode, so in another hour, not 50 whatever minutes, we are left with some large unanswered questions until potentially Defenders. This is what got me so conflicted. Well, actually, it's a 3-way confliction, right? So we had a genuinely sweet moment. And I was like, that's amazing, nice resolution, brilliant. Oh, wait, no, it's horrible because Kilgrave did all that and that's disgusting and, my God. And then it's like, but wait, so did he mean any of it? Does he actually forgive her?
Right.
Is this the beginning of the love arc? Are they just going to change the love arc? Is there no love arc?
And it goes rapidly downhill by the end of the episode anyway. But yeah, I mean, I love that whole thing where he's forgiven her, just like you said. Like, it's so, like, nice. And it felt, they stopped it at the right place. Yeah. It felt genuine. It felt really like a move on from how he reintegrates into Jessica's life. It sounded really well, and then it's the rug getting pulled from under you. And it'll be interesting, unless Jessica, as you say, is as big a role or has a bigger role in Luke Cage, then it's going to really start to take a long time to develop this arc.
Yeah.
Obviously, it depends what happens in the last episode, definitely.
Yeah, because, and I think, like, we know she is in it.
We don't.
Well, no, they know. Then they started filming.
Yes.
And she was seen supposedly around set. Now, we don't know, because she dresses like Jessica Jones, and she freely admitted that, and I think in one of her, she was explaining about the casting, she came in,
that's right,
and she was dressed as Jessica Jones in her normal clothes.
Yeah.
They was like, that's the look, perfect. We don't know that she was filmed there.
Yeah. Whether she was actually in the show or not.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Which you would assume. Okay, going back to Daredevil, right? Daredevil has, as we know now, well, he had 2 potential love interests in the Daredevil season 1, being Karen and Claire.
Yeah.
Claire's gone.
Yeah.
That's not unless they rekindle blah, 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 in season 2, which is potential, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the next show coming up, and she has been confirmed that she's in all the Netflix shows, so we're likely to see her again.
So then we also know Elektra's there. So they've got some lovely love triangle piece going, but there's no, like, we know Elektra, that doesn't work out for Matt.
Yeah.
We don't know about Claire, but potentially, like, that's probably not going to work out based on series 1. And Karen, based on if they go down the story arc of some of the comic books, that doesn't work out.
And if I remember your comments throughout the series of Daredevil, you probably wouldn't want it to work out.
No,
with
I
Karen
really
either.
don't. So what Defenders needs is that love connection.
Yeah.
Love connection.
We need Misty Knight to rock on in
Absolutely.
her heels and her tight dresses and just go, Luke, you're man.
Yeah, well,
Or ultimately Danny, obviously.
Ultimately Danny.
Danny's go, Luke, you're mine.
No, Misty Knight with Danny.
Oh, right.
Rand.
Right,
But
okay.
quite frankly, I'd be up for seeing Danny Rand and Luke Cage get it on.
Absolutely. They are,
Here's my rock hard abs. Here's my yoga pose.
interesting first point there, Chris.
Yeah, no, so I just think it was so, they played it very well, but unless we get some kind of more resolution, then it's leaving slightly a few too many unanswered questions.
Right.
Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But if we get to the end of Luke Cage and there's no resolution, I'm like, oh, come on, guys.
Right.
Like, this is a 2-year arc.
So you're wanting proper romance, not rumpy pumpy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, very, very much these two
It has
characters.
rumpy pumpy in this.
Yes.
Yeah, well, very much these two characters in the Marvel universe are kind of like, they're probably the big love story of the Marvel Comics universe. There's obviously Reed Richards and his wife, but these two are the main characters that have had a kid and have been married, right? They're well known that the two of them are very, very involved. And Mary Jane and
Peter
Gwen
Parker,
Stacy.
Peter Parker, and Mary Jane are like
Spider-Man's dead to me.
Well, let's
back
also
now for Civil War.
Well, let's also just point out again, both of those characters, those love stories, are owned by Fox, right? So the Fantastic Four, terrible film, but the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man are both owned by Fox. So within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, really it is Luke and Jessica. Everybody really knows the one thing that they know about the two of them is that they end off together. Yeah. So I really like how they played it in this show, where we saw them together at the start. We saw the sexual attraction between the two of them, and then coming into this episode, they come back together. He forgives her, and then the rug's pulled out from under him.
Yeah.
But it does actually lead in quite well into my point, because my point goes right back to the start of the episode, where we have the flashback to Luke being taken and kidnapped, essentially, by Kilgrave. And he has the conversation with him, where he's getting all of the information out of Luke that you wouldn't get if it wasn't for a character like Kilgrave. He essentially says to him, what is there between you and Jessica? And Luke says to him, we have something. We definitely have something. So Luke did essentially dump Jessica in the worst way possible because Jessica killed his wife, basically. So totally understandable. But
I don't think he dumped her. I think he decided, look, I can't be around you, and walked away.
Absolutely.
Throwing you into a bus.
But what I love in this episode is that he still admits there is something between the two of them, and he's being completely honest. We know this. So Luke is not a very open character generally. He's not a person that talks about his feelings very openly, but he is definitely admitting at the beginning of the episode that there is something between the two of them. And for a fan of those two characters, I'm delighted to see that we got that in the episode. I'm sure a bunch of Luke and Jessica fans were like, great, okay, right, we've finally seen he does have feelings for her. He's not just sleeping with her.
But I think the great thing about that scene as well is, on the flip side of the sort of the genuine affection that Luke Cage has, or love, or physical attraction to Jessica, you have on the flip side Kilgrave there, kind of really trying to probe to see, did you bugger up my chances with Jessica? And he's like, no, you did that yourself.
Yeah.
Like, so the chalk and cheese of Jessica's sort of turbulent love life is there in the back of this cab. Absolutely. Really good.
And a beautiful and a brilliant scene, and especially because it does telegraph what happens at the end of the episode. Remember, Kilgrave says to him immediately, I must think up a good response for that comment, essentially. And his response to it is to hurt Jessica in every way he possibly can, make Luke blow up his bar with him inside, and then when that doesn't kill him, then turn him against Jessica. That's everything that Kilgrave can push at Jessica because of this one comment from Luke, which is totally honest. He knows it's totally honest, which is that Kilgrave's messed up the whole relationship.
And of course we get the title episode for aka Take a Bloody Number, because obviously Luke wants to kill Kilgrave.
Yeah, like everybody else.
Like everyone else.
I think that's it on my first point. John, do you want to give us your first point?
Yeah, I want to come in with IGH. We have a scene here with Trisha's mum, who makes a reappearance, which that was good in itself. I really liked the fact that Trisha's mum came back here, but she comes back with this file. She's really trying to, or seems to want to be building bridges with Trisha in some way. Maybe not 100% altruistic, and certainly not by the end. It doesn't feel as though that relationship gets significantly better. Yeah. But she has these files with IGH, and this idea that it's where Simpson has come from. She sort of reveals that Simpson's come from, but also that they footed the medical bills following Jessica's crash, the car crash with her parents. So the idea that maybe they could have imparted the superpowers that she has on her, or she was just being observed and maybe samples taken from her, so that if she had been imbued with superpowers, that they could use them within their research with Simpson and that program under Dr. Kozlov.
All right. But what's our thoughts? What do we think the IGH could be?
In Alias, you have MGH, and that's the mutant gene hormone, which is a drug going around the city, because obviously Luke Cage has problems with drugs are part of his background. So I think that probably in the comics it connects more in with that. But there is this drug going around, and obviously now, I don't think the show here particularly points out what IGH might stand for.
Well, they say that Trish has looked into it, and there's no connection. There's no such company. Sorry, Trish's mom had looked into it. There's no such company as IGH. Yeah.
But it could then be that the I is replaced with Inhuman, given Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and obviously all the things happening there, that it could be the Inhuman growth hormone. So there could be the possibility that this kind of mysterious organization and company has given her alien DNA or Inhuman DNA.
And it might be Hydra. Very interesting.
And it might be Hydra, exactly.
Wow. No, I don't think Hydra. I think AIM.
Possibly.
That would be great as well.
Yeah,
I hope they bring the yellow hazmat suits.
That would be really cheesy, but really good.
It'd be really cool. It was the best thing in Lego Marvel, with the little AIM minions.
And we have mentioned it before in the show. We have obviously had AIM in the past in Iron Man 3. Aldrich Killian, played by Guy Pearce, was the leader of AIM, as revealed at the end of the show. So AIM does exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I'm interested in the fact that you do say, because I wasn't aware of it, the obviously possibility that we have the Inhuman genome here. That is exactly what Hydra are doing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They're looking to get specimens of Inhumans by using the genomes that were found, essentially. So that's really interesting.
And it could all bring Hydra into this universe, obviously with Iron Fist and that element, again, mysterious organization being mentioned. So this was a really big point for me, both in terms of mysterious organization that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
And secondly, obviously the connection with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but also with Jessica and obviously Simpson.
Brilliant. Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, I'm going to come on this because this was one of my points too. Okay, so consider this, right? Mm-hmm. They still haven't filled in one of the blanks about Jessica's origin.
Yeah.
According to the comics, she slammed into the truck and it was filled with chemicals, all very Matt Murdock style-esque.
Yeah.
But we don't know this yet. So what if they are building this IGH to be the Netflix version of AIM or Hydra or a spin-off type, a splinter group, right? Who becomes the shadowy organization of the Netflix Marvel Universe.
Right. So
what we get then is perhaps they experimented on Jessica when she was in the coma as one of the kids.
Maybe.
Because that links, she was in a coma and we have the whole bit which hasn't been 100% tied up because Jessica just gives Luke the flash drive.
Yes, she does.
And that's it. That's the end of that arc, if we want to call it that.
Setting him off on his investigation for the Luke Cage TV show, potentially. Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. But then, let's go further, okay? What if they're the ones who are part of the ones funding the Steel Serpents, Madame Gao? So you end up, and then we end up getting this... do you remember, I can't remember, I think it was the Immortal Iron Fist series, where you had Hydra trying to take down Danny Rand's company.
Yeah, and get to the gate of the 7 cities of heaven and Kunlun and all this kind of stuff, like to deal with that, or to try and capture and use this mystical power, which of course they're kind of trying to do in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I kind of at the moment have it aligned like that in my own head. It might not be what's going on, but it's that they're going to different planets, and that's kind of the same maybe as different cities in heaven, these different areas, realms, planes, whatever, that to try and bring in this kind of mystical weaponry for their own use. And certainly, you know, that they have had Stephen Strange as well on their radar in The Winter Soldier. So, you know, it's all sort of building towards trying to utilize this weaponry. And even with S.H.I.E.L.D., the weaponry to defend themselves, in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s case, but with Hydra to use to their own advantage.
Yeah, possibly.
For more sort of nefarious reasons.
So I'm going to pull my last piece, right? We have the hand.
Yep.
They've been introduced.
Kind of, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was Nobu,
Yep.
the ninja, I suppose, played by Peter Shinkoda in season 1 of Daredevil. Yep.
Yep. So what if it's something like the Something Glorious Hand?
Oh, interesting.
They are the shadowy organization. They funded Madame Gao and the Steel Serpents. They are the hand with Nobu. They are the ones who've been experimenting on kids because they want to breed their version of the super soldier like Nobu, like Luke Cage and the other kids that they were experimenting on.
Right.
So they become the Hydra for Marvel Netflix.
Right, interesting.
They become the oh my god, is he actually working for them? Is he good? Is he bad? Is he a plant? Brings in some of the elements of Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Right.
Is he good? Is he bad? Oh no, I don't know. Brings in that kind of noir setting that we wanted and we got from Jessica Jones, which is like the very cheesy but great. The TV trope, which is a guy's introduced and you don't know whether he's good or bad, or is he a double agent, triple agent, quadruple agent, kind of fun. But then, how great would it be, right? Daredevil season 2, which is coming in March. What if we see Matt Murdock get doused with chemicals? Maybe they were going to hurt him, but then he gets to the hospital and they experiment on this kid, and that's their thing. Like, they are trying to build this human child army of superheroes, or gifted.
Maybe they were behind Black Sky in the first season of Daredevil as well, which is the young kid who had the superpowers. So maybe there is this connection between IGH and all of these, all of the shows. So it's very possible that this could be our big bad, the reveal of our big bad, I suppose, for Defenders. Again, as I said, Luke Cage has this flash drive now of the kids that are experimenting on. Maybe he goes off on that investigation and finds out who IGH are. We do still have one more episode of Jessica Jones to go, so maybe there's a bit more in there about IGH in the next
We're all
episode.
wrong again. It's going to be like IGH. It's an arm of Google. Like, something's wrong. It's like they're trying to taking over the world.
That doesn't make them any less nefarious, does it?
No. Like, Google is Hydra.
Absolutely.
Cut off one head, it becomes Alphabet.
Yeah, exactly. Derek, what's your next point?
My point's slightly tied into this. Just one little point about the Trish and Barbara discussion that I thought stood out, essentially, was Trish had a drug problem in the past, essentially caused by her mother, in her head anyway, pushing her into this fame. Her mother kind of comes into her and says, I heard you were taking drugs. Again, did you relapse again? And Trish says, no, it's not like that. This is a completely different thing. I'm absolutely fine. I haven't relapsed. So it's another bit of the mysterious past, I suppose, of Patsy Walker that we're hearing in this episode. And what I really am feeling over the course of these episodes, I think I mentioned it last week, that we're getting much more of an origin story of Patsy Walker than we are of Jessica Jones. All we know of Jessica was that she was in a car accident and now she is Jessica Jones with the superpowers. We still, 12 episodes into the series, haven't found out how she got the superpowers. We know that IGH foot the bill for the medical, but we are totally guessing at whether they were involved in testing on her or not. We still don't know at 12 episodes in, which I think is really interesting. But Patsy, we know a lot more about. We know how she's got to where she is. We know that she empowered herself because of how she was forced to do things by her mother. We know, obviously, she took the drugs last week and had the big fight with Simpson. So we know that she wants to be a hero, wants to be a superhero. We don't know anything like that about Jessica, which I think is fascinating considering the show is called Jessica Jones. You'd expect to have gotten the origin story of Jessica. And one other thing I wanted to call out is definitely Barbara's exit from the hospital. I thought is one of the best exits I've seen in the show so far, which is I'll just go and scream at nurses on the way out to cheer myself up. Really good, that little moment from Barbara, who is a despicable character, but I love her. I really enjoy seeing her in the show. Yeah,
and so with the drug problem, I'm glad they actually resolved that, because I think, and now our listeners will be able to tell us, they alluded to something like this back in the very beginning when Jessica kind of meets and talks to Patty at the beginning.
Yeah.
They her problem at the time. I think we talked about it.
Yeah.
We go, could she have had a big breakdown type thing?
Yeah.
But you're right. I also get the feeling that we're getting, Jessica's built. Mm-hmm. She already is the quintessential anti-hero of this. We're seeing the build of Hellcat.
Yeah.
the birth, if you want to call it that, of someone who we know has an addictive personality now. So her new drug now is becoming the action and the danger of being involved with gifted type individuals, and they're...
Oh, you mean heroes?
Yes, heroes. Thank you. And we can actually... Can we use that now? Is that taken? No. Sorry. Sorry, that the gifted is still getting to me. 12 episodes in, and I'm still ranting about it. But no, I think it's... You're right. If we do not see Patsy and in some variation of a Hellcat type hero, I will be in Luke Cage or Iron Fist, but at least Defenders, where something's wrong.
Yeah.
Because then what you've done is you built this huge character. They built the backstory of her character. They built her up, like you said, more than they built up on the background of Jessica.
Yeah.
Like, in theory, it's Patsy. That should be the name of the show.
Well, we certainly spent more time with Jessica. I don't want to take away from the writers of the show. We certainly spent more time with Jessica in the present moment. We've got a few flashbacks to her past, but they're more about she had a family. That's kind of it, you know.
Well, it's had a family.
Yeah.
Family died.
Exactly. She became a sister to this very rich girl, but then we got the actual origin story of that character, which I think is a great choice. I know Marvel had said just before the Daredevil series came out, they were kind of done with origin stories. We knew we were going to get an origin story throughout Daredevil, but we didn't get it till about episode 3, I think it was. We got the flashback, or episode 2 actually. So whereas Jessica Jones, we didn't get an origin story here. So this is interesting that their main character doesn't have an origin story. Also, a little bit of kind of news to bring into this episode. The Russo brothers, who are doing Infinity War, have announced there are 67 Marvel characters going to appear in that movie, in some small sense. There's not all main characters, obviously. So I wonder, will we see Hellcat in the background of that movie? Will we see her fully formed now that she is... Hopefully, by the end of the series, still, again, one more episode, hopefully she's fully formed by the end of the series, so they'll be able to just take her out, have her in a scene or two with some of the major players. That'll be interesting.
So, I read that article too, right? And I'm worried by that statement, right? Because, first of all, everyone jumped on it going, oh my god, 67 heroes and
too
villains.
many main characters,
And I'm like, there's no way.
Absolutely.
No film, unless...
It's a big battle scene. It must be.
That's
it
what
must be
it is.
against probably the worst character that's been introduced into the MCU so far. Thanos.
Yeah, but, hold on, no, I'll take you on that. So, yeah, you get that big fight scene, right? But they still haven't confirmed if they're bringing the MCU TVU into the MCUU.
Yeah.
Like the big one, the MCUU.
They're all connected. That's what they've said.
They're connected.
And I think that's what the Russo brothers were saying. Very much they were saying, we'll use every character we have available to us. The script's not written. The movie's not shot. We know that. They're very much just saying that. And as you said, instantly when they released that as a headline for an article, everybody jumped on top of it. They did clarify that they will use all the characters. All they mean is, we have a universe now. We'll use everything we can. That's what they're really saying. It's essentially not saying they won't have bystanders running by in the background. They'll be able to use characters that have been built up in the universe, whether it be cops that we've seen in the TV shows.
But that's brilliant. That to me is the double page spread of a massive fight between, whether it was from Civil War, from World War Hulk or something, this huge... massive battle between opposing forces or between superheroes and supervillains, where you see and you look through this massive 2-page spread to say, oh look, there's Iron Man, oh look, there's Captain America.
Or as I always did,
that is fantastic, and that is straight from the comic books, and that's great.
Absolutely. Or as I did, oh look, there's Nick Fury in the background shooting somebody.
Hold on. Exactly. Yeah, except he was probably not in it that much.
He was always there. He was always either leading or leading the charge or shooting somebody in the head, but that's the only panel you get from the comic.
The only reason you know he's there is because we have flashbacks going, oh, I was wearing a life model decoy or I made myself look like someone else while I was there. It was all about being covert.
Yeah. Was it ever the real Nick Fury? Is the question.
It's going to turn around.
It's
not going to be Samuel L. Jackson. It's going to be turn out that Samuel L. Jackson is actually, as Nick Fury in MCU, is actually James Earl Jones. It's that would be brilliant. It's the ultimate reveal. No, wait. Nick Fury is a little white Caucasian dwarf. That would be amazing. Can you imagine at the end of the universe, the ultimate reveal is no, I wasn't a super cool guy.
He's the Watcher. Yeah.
Well, Derek would be well happy with
the
that.
Dwarf's the Watcher's a giant. He can't. No.
Nick Fury was the Watcher on the wall. Yeah. And I think we might have to rename the podcast from the Founders TV podcast to maybe the Wonderland podcast, because we keep going down rabbit holes. I think we need to take it back. Chris, do you want to give us your next point?
So brilliant. I'm going to bring up one, and it's a very short one, which was just so funny. Jessica running through Central Park. Mm-hmm. And, not running through Jessica. And her comments to the passerbys.
Oh, it's hilarious.
So, the bubbles go, what the hell? Yeah. Why not? The guy just blows it, and I was like, she's going to burst right through. No, she just kind of zags around it.
The bubble that's kind of starting to encompass her, and she just gets really annoyed with it and frustrated, like anybody would. It's not the superhero moment. No. It's a bloody bubble that's right in her face. It's really annoying her. Yeah.
But the ultimate part of that scene, you all know what I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. Bloody breeders.
Oh,
I was
hilarious.
Yes. It's just this army of kind of prams, and it's we've all been there. We're all oh my god, just get you and your kid away from me. I'm trying to walk here.
the six women were prams in front of her. Yeah,
the chariots.
Really funny. It reminded me of the movie Hot Fuzz, where there's a great moment that it just really stands out to me, and I wonder why they didn't use it in Jessica Jones. Essentially, it's where the main character of played by Simon Pegg is running down the street, and a bunch of women come in front of him with their prams, and he goes, "Oh, you mothers," which is a great way of not having to make the curse. Essentially, of course, Jessica would have probably made the bigger curse, but breeders is probably just as offensive as that. So.
But the reason I loved it even more is because I know the comic book where she becomes a breeder.
Yeah.
And she becomes with Luke Cage and has a baby. And one of the probably only big pregnancies and births in the Marvel comic universe that has stayed alive and hasn't been retconned or that we know of right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. She is ultimately not a mother whatsoever.
Absolutely.
She has no mothering type trait or anything in her. Mm-hmm. So we'll either see this becoming and growing in her, or it's just going to be no, she's a hard as nails, whiskey drinking, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, no, I really like that touch, definitely. I think the way they approach it in the comic is, and that's why so many people love the character of Jessica Jones, is that when she gets pregnant, she has that reaction, which is, I don't want a bloody child. She has that reaction of, I'm not prepared for this, and I love that, they've called it out here. She really is just so annoyed with these people in the park with their prams, not realising she has something really important to do, which is chase down the courier.
Yeah, well, this brings me on to my next point, which is the AAV1 viral drug that Albert's using on his son and injecting him with. And two things from this. Basically, we have the hedge clipper moment.
Oh, my God.
Again, something kind of that mirrors Hot Fuzz as well. But we have the clippers going into the courier's head, who is trying to get more of this drug for Kilgrave and for his dad, for the experiments or the tests that they're doing to try and increase his kind of control. But also then we just have as well with this another really great scene of Albert just saying, I'm really, really tired. I can't focus. And Kilgrave just asks him to put his hand in the blender. And then, of course, nothing happens. But it is that cringe moment where the blender is speeding away.
So good.
And his dad has put his fist into the container and just moving it towards there, and it's just oh my god, Kilgrave is an absolute arse, in terms of with this courier, because he knows that Jessica is probably going to be looking for him, following him. He's got all these different safety nets in place, and then with his own father Albert, it just, I think he goes, are you focused now? Do you still need a nap? You know, it's
Yeah.
like, what an a-hole.
Absolutely.
But it was a brilliant way to wake someone up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going, I might try that.
God, I do not want to work for you.
No.
Work harder, team. Work
Yeah.
harder.
Okay, get me that. I just literally start every now and take out the blender. Just to scare people. I'm just going to make a smoothie. Or am I?
Right. Nice. Yeah, no, I think Chris has called out pretty much in each of the episodes the moments that have really made you cringe and made your skin kind of crawl. Right the way back from Kilgrave licking Jessica's face in the first episode. These are getting more and more gruesome. That scene, I honestly felt Jessica was very close. She can make it. She can make a high speed jump or something to get to him, to get to the guy before he puts the shears in his throat, essentially. But no, we get a pretty gruesome drop, face plant to the floor with the set of shears.
The shears sticking up
straight
out of
through.
the back of the head, but then of course, like, she goes rifling through his bag and all that, whilst all these onlookers, and you're like going, maybe Jessica, stop that, because now you just look like you're a thief.
But why did she check his pulse? That's what I'm like. He checks his pulse, and I'm like, he has a pair of shears through his brain.
I didn't spot that.
Sure.
Well, she might be able to explain away the looking through his bag, saying she was looking for his ID or something before she called the cops. But yeah, it did look really, really weird when she's shouting across to him and then runs over and goes through his bag as he's sitting there with the shears through. But yeah, a tough scene, really.
And then she runs away, going, "You guys call the cops. I'm going to try and find one." I was like, that's actually a clever way. Like, if we ever are surrounded by people and this dead person, go, yeah, I'm going to go find a cop, you call them. It's grand. Yeah, I'll go and find one. Not saying I'm going to try and kill someone.
No.
This is not an admission. This is not an admission on record.
And one small point that kind of links into this, because this is kind of like the trio of Kilgraves that go on here. The guy that he tells to go and stand and look at the railings forever.
Oh, wow.
And it pans, later on in the episode, it pans back and he's still there kind of looking cold. He's shivering, he's wet himself. It's just like, oh my god, you poor guy.
Yeah.
Like, Kilgrave is a monster.
And all he did was compliment Kilgrave.
Yeah, I know. It's so horrendous.
And do you know what's even better? And I have to give a little bit of props to Billy Gerhardt, perhaps, or the production designers at the very least. When we come back and see him standing there in the cold, he looks like a completely different kid than he did when he came up to Kilgrave. He looks completely changed by his experience of just standing there for possibly up to a day. We know now, I think it's 24 hours now, that Kilgrave has the power, so possibly up to a day standing there staring at the one spot. It's a fantastic design, a really good little callback, essentially, because he doesn't do anything. Nobody stops him and nobody saves him or anything like that. He's just in the background as Jessica arrives, isn't he?
Yeah.
So,
well, foreground.
Foreground, sorry. Yes, her background, our foreground. Yeah. Good perspective discussion there, Chris.
That's right.
Derek, what's your next point?
My next point is the other big moment, I think, in the episode for me is Robin's farewell to Reuben. I think you mentioned it earlier on, Chris, that there's a lot of wrap-up that's going on now. We've only got 2 episodes left. The one thing I would say about this is probably, I think this could have happened in maybe episode 9, but there was too much going on there. Maybe episode 10. It feels like it's been kind of pushed out a little bit later than it should have. Robin seems to have been sitting around the apartment a bit too long, not actually doing anything as a character, not really progressing much in the show. But I thought the scene itself was fantastically played by the 2 actors. I thought it was really well done. And there's a nice bit of comedy in there as well. There's a couple of lines that I particularly liked out of it. I love that when Malcolm is talking to her, he's saying to her that, yes, everybody liked Reuben. His banana bread was amazing. He must have put crack in it. Actually, wait a minute, was there crack in it? Being a crack addict, I thought that was a nice little gag there. And then Robin's final farewell to her brother is, may they have express delivery in heaven, which I thought was great, because she finds the package that she had made him not get express delivery on arriving to her home. But a nice little touch for those 2 characters, a nice little wrap up of Robin, I thought, but possibly could have happened in an earlier episode. I just feel that the TV show felt quite stuffed throughout the episodes. We've had so much to talk about in every episode, so I don't know where this scene should have sat, but I do feel the 12th episode is probably a bit late for it to happen, but a nice scene to have between the 2 of them.
Absolutely. Like, I felt the same thing. I thought it was really nice, the scene. I think it was great that, she kind of went to where Malcolm had thrown his body into the docks and into the river. That was all great. Yeah, a bit sooner may have worked better, just because everything was so focused on, Luke Cage and Jessica and Kilgrave and his dad that, sometimes I just wondered whether it was taking me out of the moment, but I actually did really like it. And I did like the fact that she was the catalyst for Malcolm staying, actually. Like, he was about to leave, head back to his parents. He was quite clear that Jessica had pretty much almost ruined his life.
Yeah.
He was having pretty negative opinions of Jessica there. He bumps into them both, Jessica and Luke, walking back to her apartment, which I have to say has some great dialogue in that moment. And he says, what are you doing back here almost? You should stay away from her. She ruins your life.
Yeah.
And it's Robin who's freaking out upstairs, who ultimately, delays Malcolm enough so that he doesn't leave in the end.
Yeah.
But just quickly as well, the whole thing where Jessica and Luke get back to Jessica's apartment after he's just blown up, obviously, the bar. And Luke looks around the place and sees all the holes, the absolute mess of the apartment. And she goes, "We're both lousy renters," which I thought was really good. And
I love that she doesn't explain it to him. She's had a huge fight in the apartment with Simpson. He probably needs to know this.
But Luke Cage just sort of as a side goes, at least it's not on fire kind of thing. So a really nice little sort of nonchalant kind of moment with a few little dropped gags, sort of subtly put in there, which was really good, I thought.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree. I don't know what it is. Robin character has now grated on me so much. If it wasn't for the being used as a plot point to further Malcolm in basically getting Malcolm to stay, there would be no need for the scene.
I think it needs to that character needs to be rounded out. I think from your point before that she had no character arc, this is the character arc. And hopefully we'll see her back as Typhoid Mary, as you've pointed out before. So we probably needed a bit more of her character to show off in the show.
And potentially, it's the craziness for a show that is very Daredevil-esque in that it is grounded in reality, not like some of the other MCU stuff. She is a caricature of a character.
But those people exist.
Really?
In New York.
Really?
They do. And I mean, it's...
Come to New York Comic Con with us next year.
Whereas a man with unbreakable skin and a woman who can, fly doesn't. I know what you're saying. I definitely understand that. But, I liked her character, ultimately. I just thought here, it maybe could have been done a few episodes earlier.
Yeah. Okay, perhaps then if it had been done sooner, I would have...
And it should have been linked in with her finding out from Malcolm, and Malcolm trying to say, well, look, I'll give you closure by taking you to where I dumped his body. Something along those lines, rather than... he does that here, and I just think that would have happened earlier.
Yeah, because again, there is that weird moment as they arrive at the docks where she says, "Why are you taking me down here?" I always wonder about that in TV shows where they've clearly spent about 25 minutes with each other with dialogue that we don't see on the screen. And you go, well, what were you doing for the last 25 minutes on your walk down to the docks? Were you not asking him why you were taking him there, But I did like her Pisces discussion about the fact that the two of them are twins. They were both born in March. Sending him back to the water is the right place to lay him to rest. So she didn't seem hugely angry about what happened, so that she does get that closure out of the moment. So I did like the scene, definitely. Chris, do you want to give us your next point?
Okay, I'm going to talk about the point that we've been dancing around for this.
I wanted it as all of our last points because I know it is our last point.
Okay, well, is this everyone else's last point? Can we talk about this?
I think we can talk about it.
Is this the nightclub?
This is the nightclub.
Is this the nightclub?
This is the fight.
Yes.
The fight. This was surprisingly thrilling and scary aha moment and a wow moment.
I thought you were going to say a wham moment. Then you would have had two 80s bands in one sentence.
We could wham. No.
A Duran Duran moment in there as well.
Oh my God, yeah. Can you imagine? That would actually be brilliant. They had different music playing. Anyway, well, this is what we complained. This is what I complained about.
Yeah, but on yourself.
This is on me. In other words, we didn't have that much action in this show. Like fisticuffs
Yes.
action.
Yeah.
Coming from a show like Daredevil where we had at least a punch and a kick every episode. This made up for it.
Absolutely.
This was 20 minutes?
It was a good 15 minutes.
Yeah, a good 15 minutes of just wall-to-wall punches and kicks and going... See, this is the thing. They showed how someone of that small frame can go against the bruiser that is Luke Cage, which is unbreakable. Because she was smaller, so she was jumping under him and then kicking him in the knees and then throwing him into... And how she was using her powers as well.
Yeah.
Like, where she pushes herself off the wall and, like, kind of glide, like, speeds like a bullet into him.
Right.
Knocking him into
that
the
was
wall.
really
and then,
cool.
Yeah.
Now, our listeners, if you're listening for the very first time, I sometimes get annoyed by TV trope and film trope and cliches.
That's a word.
Yeah, it is. It is a real word, a trope. Look it up. I did not mind that they used the ultimate cliche in a thrilling moment in this. And of course, I'm talking about, we were all there when she had her back to the door, which holding a steel girder, which was pretty cool. But she had her back to the wall. I was like...
Waiting for it to come through the door, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I was like, okay, he's a superhero with super strength. He's going to punch through the wall and grab her. And I was like, oh, they did it. I actually didn't care because they did it really well in that she didn't go through once.
But it makes sense for his character to punch through a wall because he's got unbreakable.
Absolutely.
But they made it again, because typically in a film, they just like he'd pull through in one fell swoop and grab her through, right? In this, he grabbed her like almost like a bear hug and pulled once, nothing, twice, like getting closer. And the third time she slips through, but she bends over.
Yes. She's using her strength to try and stop him from pulling her through the wall.
I think that was it. This fight was so scrappy and so messy. It felt absolutely how it would pan out. You know, she is having to fight smart, dirty, really hunker down and scrap it out with this huge guy. And I absolutely love that. Even just with the police door.
Amazing.
The squad car door that being
being
pounded was like really, really cool. And I loved as well just how it mingled in to begin with on the dance floor with Kilgrave as the DJ, the MC, sort of directing it, and saying how he had been in control all the time as Luke is there trying to kill her. And just like, that was my line. Did you like it? You know, that like really annoyingly, kind of going back to, I think it was the first point we made, but like, you know, just really cool. And that was all being done on the dance floor. Yeah. Really, really liked that.
Oh yeah. And boy, did they dance. What a great fight sequence. Just that particular moment that you were talking about through the wall. It really, I know it's, to you it's a trope, but to me it just is right out of a zombie film. It's that moment of the zombies breaking through a wall to take out your hero or your heroine. Fantastic moment. Really, really enjoyed it. All the way through. It's just filled with excellent moments. And it really is something that I would love to have seen. You know, these episodes obviously don't go with cover art. They just take images from the episode themselves. But you know that this would be an amazing front of a comic book cover. Jessica Jones versus Luke Cage. Yeah. And there's an absolute reason here, like there are in the Marvel versus kind of series, I think Marvel Arena, Avengers Arena, something like that. Battle World overall, yeah. But there's specific sets of comics where the main heroes go up against each other, and there's always a reason behind one of them turning to the dark side and fighting each other. This is a perfect one. Kilgrave's in control. He's telling Luke to kill her. And Jessica's holding back a little bit, but we can see she can hold her own. You know, she doesn't want to kill him. She wants to take him out and knock him out or do something to stop him. And I love that moment of realization that she can't do anything at all. And she's going to have to put a bullet in his head, essentially, to stop him, which is the last moment or the last minutes of the fight. And
before we get to that last minutes of the fight, because I know one of you is going to want to talk about it.
Okay.
She nearly flies. Mm-hmm. And that... Nearly.
Yeah.
Because you can see her. She took off. Now, we talked off air, talking about... Because this frustrated me.
Right.
Because I was like, she's gonna fly! And he grabs her.
Brilliant.
And it was like... But, see, to you, it looked like a jump.
Yes.
To me, she hovered like... So she was still pushing up as he was pulling down.
Yes.
So she was there. If there's a split second where she's just hanging in air while he's holding her, and I was like, that's cool. That's not just her jumping, as she likes to call it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, it was like, and I thought, oh, they could have, like, the strain of it kind of knocked her. You know, it's just like a great battle, and it's a really good comic book part where they suddenly develop something and get to use a power because of the agony and stress they're under.
Right.
That would have been brilliant. She had to get away from him, so she ends up starts hovering above him.
Right.
Oh, it would have been so good.
See, I like this, I must say, because in the comics or in the images that you've seen from the comics, you obviously have to fill in a lot of comics because it's not every single instant second. It's not animated, obviously. It's just frames. But this is exactly how I expect Jessica flies. But we've talked about on the podcast before that we don't actually have a flying character that does it under their own power at all. We have Iron Man, who obviously uses the suit. We have Thor, who uses the hammer. So Jessica's our first possible flying character. But effectively, the way I've explained it to myself in my own head, not given a huge amount in the show, what we are given are these types of teases all the way throughout the series where people look up and go, is she flying, or did she just jump over our heads, kind of thing? Do you remember one of the episodes earlier on with the cops?
The cops.
Yeah. Whereas in this one, you think exactly, is Jessica going to fly here? Are we going to see Jessica actually fly? But no, you don't. She uses her strength to push herself off the ground at a higher rate than a human could because of the power that she has. Not saying that Jessica's not a human, but we see her jump only a couple of inches off the ground and then is grabbed by Luke and smacked off the floor like something from wrestling. You know?
It's jumping. It's real.
No, hold on. Look, if it was jumping, that she wouldn't have hung. He would have just slammed her down.
Or he's holding her and slamming her. It's the move from Luke, I think, that's keeping her held in the air. But I like
answers on a postcard, people.
Absolutely.
Team Chris, Team Derek, and John.
We do have a Facebook group where you can go and join, which is Defenders TV Podcast. We do have an email address, which is feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Send in your thoughts there rather than trying to find our actual address and putting it on a postcard. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I love jumping Jessica, and I love the fact that we've never seen anything more than a couple of inches off the ground. They didn't develop a rig for Kristen Ritter to be hanging in the air with. We've seen her jump a lot, but not any flying so far. And I love
so good.
This is what it always looked like in the comic books for me. But John, any thoughts on that?
On the flying, it's jumping.
It's jumping, right?
It's real.
2 against 1. Come on, listeners, join my side. Come on, come to the dark side.
No, I mean, because then she would need inertial dampeners on her eyeballs or something.
Goggles.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. See?
but then inertial dampeners.
So to go back to the fight itself.
Yeah.
Basically, on the fight, I love the fact that it got so crazy. She did have to essentially put the gun up against his chin and fire. And I mean, to begin with, I was slightly confused as to suddenly why she was thinking and crying and racing back to him as though like she had hurt him, because obviously she, fired it at his skin, which is unbreakable. So I was kind of going, this is a bit strange. This is really weird. But I suppose maybe it's almost like a knockout punch, or something like that, or a concussion that he's gotten from it, from the recoil of the gun, or the sort of the thump and the pressure wave from it, or something like that has affected him,
right,
rather than it being a physical kind of knockout blow or something. Right. It's done something internally, but I don't know how unbreakable skin works. Kind of weird to think maybe what was going through the writers here, but initially I was struck about how odd it was that he was knocked out, firstly,
right,
and secondly that she was concerned that she may have killed him or something.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of the way it's played, and you're feeling the right way. That's definitely the way the writers want you to feel. That is the point. It kind of comes back to me. I think the TV show Heroes did it, where we have the cheerleader who can't die, right? Yeah, okay, she didn't die the first time they tried something with her, and they kept doing experiments essentially to see how far they could take it. Yeah?
Yeah, okay.
Even though she didn't die the first time, could she die the second time, right? does that cause the person who's doing these things to her to be a murderer? Yeah. So in this sense, what Jessica is essentially, to me, the way it's being read is Jessica's putting a shotgun up against the head of a guy that's told her he's got unbreakable skin. But has he tested every single thing in the world to see if it can penetrate his skin or not? So she is probably thinking, all right, I need to do something big here. Nothing I'm doing is knocking him out or taking him off the battlefield, essentially. Will I put this gun to his head, pull the trigger, and see if that will knock him out, or could it actually kill the guy I love?
And he's not invincible either. I mean, we know that just from the comics, so...
Yeah, so Jessica doesn't. She doesn't read the comic.
That'd be really interesting.
That's me.
Fourth wall.
Absolutely. But we'll wait for Deadpool for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of the thought process that's going through her head. She's putting a shotgun up against his head, and she's deciding whether she'll pull the trigger or not to take him out off the battlefield. And she doesn't know what's going to happen to him.
No, absolutely. And I think that's kind of how I came back to it. But in the moment, I was like going, but what are you doing? Because I expected him to get up and continue the sort of the beat down of her. I thought it was more that, I don't know, a bit like with Trish having to put the bullet in the mouth, that she was going to have to do something like punch him in the mouth and rip out his tongue or something like that, or like deafen him with the ears. Like, has he got unbreakable eardrums? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that kind of thing. I wondered, like, was she going to find the weakness to him? Or is it going to be a case where she's just going to have to run away?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, when the shotgun went off, I expected a moment of him to sit up with wisps of smoke kind of billowing from his face kind of thing as a shotgun blast, because I didn't expect that to knock him out. This is the bad sides of knowing what we do and following these things. We know Luke Cage has a series coming out.
Yeah.
We know he cannot die.
Yes.
Like, that is the trouble.
Unless... And this is what I was thinking after we watched this episode. Unless the Luke Cage TV series is the story of how he met Reba and all the story of how he got his powers, all that kind of stuff. There is things they could do. So I do feel in a little bit of is there a possibility that Luke could be taken out in this episode?
But then he put a angle grinder to his abs.
Very true.
And like that didn't.
Yeah.
Like that, then probably diamond cut and right. It was hammed a bit too much in that last bit where she's crying over the body. I'm like, he's not going to be dead, honey. Relax. You knocked him out. It's okay.
I wish we were all in New York to take care of poor little Jessica.
Yeah, but just to wrap it up, I for this point, for me, like, I wasn't. I think we discussed about it before, slightly, in terms of that. I can't remember which podcast it was, in the slightly being taken out of the moment because you know this is a main character.
I get you.
And not like there's upcoming pieces for him or her.
Yeah, and absolutely. Yeah.
And so it was just like, now, it does not take away. It takes away a fraction.
Right.
But overall, this was amazing. Like you said, like, I agree with every one of your points. Like that door scene where she rips the door off and she just pounds him. You actually see the door, because I had to rewind it.
You didn't have to, but you know you did. I certainly rewound the scene a lot.
To see the door start, like, whatever way they built it from a prop type of way, it started going in and bending.
Yeah.
In her hand, and then when he finally rips it out and throws it away, I was like, that was amazing.
Great. It felt like
really
a Hulk moment
Yes.
almost. Yeah, it was really good. Really, really good. I think overall that's all the points we have on the episode. John, do you have any notes about the episode?
I do. I have two. We've got a whiskey watch here, which is Wildfowl quality whiskey, which I suspect quality is a lie. And then
Top quality
the other
whiskey.
one is, forgive my indulgence, but on the yellow New York cab, you had flat fur JFK, and I just laughed at that point. I have to say, I thought, there's no such thing in New York cabbies. I thought, oh, look, there's the humour. I love this. I love this humour in Jessica Jones.
Yeah, a little tip for anybody going to New York: never take the cab from the airport. It's very, very expensive. Take the train. It's about $7.
Yeah, as opposed to 80, even though the flat fare is
Plus
actually
tip.
50.
Plus tax, plus tip, John.
No, on the whiskey watch, I was thinking about this. Can you imagine if Wildfowl is the MCU version of Wild Turkey.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be brilliant. It'd be like, yeah, no, we're gonna take your favorite things like Pop-Tarts and Wild Turkey and Coca-Cola, and they'll rename them just slightly. And you'll be like, I know that.
A Coca-Cola or something.
Yeah.
I like it.
Derek, do you have any notes?
Yeah, a couple of little notes actually that we didn't really get to talk about throughout the episode. There is a mention from Kilgrave's father, who's now helping him out with increasing his abilities, that he's using stem cells. So this, I think, means that he's taken the fetus that was being experimented on. He's using the stem cells of potentially Kilgrave's child to develop his powers, which I just thought was quite interesting, that there was a bit of a callback. It was very slight. It was just a one-liner where he says that, where he makes that comment, essentially. But I thought that was quite interesting that they did do what we thought they were doing, that he goes to Hammond Labs, goes and picks up the fetus, and then goes and experiments on it to increase his powers, essentially. So that's quite an interesting little touch.
Yeah, just one thing on Albert, actually. I think when him and Kilgrave come out of the nightclub, the church, the first time, and Kilgrave tells the kid to go and look at the railings forever, at one point there, it struck me that Albert almost seemed to be there of his free will, and I wondered whether there was a double cross, or that actually Albert and Kilgrave were sort of working together as father and son, because I think in the end it was more that he was drunk, I think, and Kilgrave was just relaxed. But for a split second, it just gave me the feeling or the impression that Albert wasn't really being held there against his will so much. But obviously, we find out later in the episode with the blender that that's not the case. But that was just like one thing, small thing that kind of struck me at that scene, definitely. Yeah,
no, totally agree with you. There is a little moment. And it's one of the weird things about Kilgrave's powers when he is controlling someone, that everything can look really normal between the two people. It can look like they're absolutely there, their free will. Hence the whole thing that he has a problem with Jessica, that he doesn't understand how she can't love him, because the whole time she was under his control, it felt so natural to him. So yeah, it's a good little call out there. Couple other ones for me. I love, and we used to talk about the door. Do you remember the door in Alias Investigations? We used to talk about it a lot in some of the early episodes. And we said last week's episode that the door got broken again. I love a little touch as Luke and Jessica leave the apartment. Jessica closes the door behind her and reaches back through the door and locks it, totally pointlessly. But I love the little touch. Thought it was very funny, as if she's just not really taking account of the fact that she has no window in there anymore. Nice little touch. And the other one that we just didn't mention, just because we didn't get around to it, because there was so much else going on. But this is our first episode where we have a meeting between Trish and Luke Cage. And there's a great moment. It is Trish Walker, nice to meet you, Luke Cage. Really nice. And one that I think might play out in the future when Luke Cage has his own series. Maybe we will get a bit of Trish coming into that show.
A new Trish triangle.
Cool. I don't think there's going to be a love interest element. I don't think that's necessary, hopefully.
She called him hot.
But that's very true. But I do like the fact that these two major characters in the Marvel Universe have now had their first meeting in the show. That was quite
definitely
cool. Yeah. Chris, do you have any other notes about this episode?
Yeah, just on the actual, that meeting. Mm-hmm. I was a bit taken aback by the pause on the IGH reveal to Jessica. You would have thought at that point she would have kind of, even though all the other stuff's going on, it's like, oh, well, this is kind of important. It was like,
yeah.
I'm assuming they're going to do some build up in this finale of a reveal for who or what IGH is, and then either it will come out that Patsy knew about it all along and was investigating it, blah, 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 and just like, how could you, blah, right. Or it's going to be just kind of like forgotten about.
Yeah, I kind of feel, I don't know, put my head in the mind of the character, but I think with Trish, it's like if I see a guy I don't know who's accompanying Jessica, has he been Kilgraved or not, essentially? Do I talk about anything in front of him just in case of anything? So
okay,
I wonder if that's
the
thought.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, this is a guy that I've never been told about by the girl who tells me everything, essentially. So maybe there's something going on here that I don't know about. Maybe I shouldn't trust him off the bat, essentially. So quite an interesting thing, considering what actually happens, that he has been Kilgraved. Yeah. So luckily, Trish didn't tell Jessica about IGH. I keep wanting to say IGN.
Yeah, same here.
Because that would have gotten back to Kilgrave. So quite interesting.
Yeah, and then my final point was just on the Kilgrave father scene in the penthouse. He has great taste. He has great taste.
In houses.
Just in houses. Because you just see randomly, you always see two people in the background.
Uh-huh.
This time I think it was a gay couple. And but it was just lovely penthouse.
Amazing apartment.
Yeah, it looks amazing, didn't
Obviously,
it?
I was just like, I kind of want that power just for that.
I kind of want the money that those two characters must have been making to get a New York penthouse. Can you imagine how much money that is? Only Kingpin can afford that kind of apartment. Not saying that everybody lives in a penthouse apartment in New York is as evil as Wilson Fisk, but anyway.
A majority are.
No, on that note, I think we'll go into our recommends. John, do you defend this episode of Jessica Jones?
I do defend this episode of Jessica Jones. I would give it 4 bloody numbers out of 5. I really thought this was solid. I think immediately after the episode, I did kind of think it was pretty slow. I was like waiting for it to really just explode into this kind of finale over 2 episodes getting Kilgrave. But it pegged it back, and I think it pegged it back in a really good way because, you know, we got introduced to the IGH, I'm going to call it Inhuman Growth Hormone at the moment, you know, which helps explain potentially two of the characters here in Simpson and even in Jessica. And it threads nicely and absolutely gorgeously throughout the other parts of the MCU with regards to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., even possibly moving down towards the other Marvel Netflix shows, you know, in terms of the yellow USB fob with Luke Cage, maybe into Iron Fist, who knows, AIM, Hydra, everything we've discussed. You know, it's just a really juicy bit of something to get your teeth into and to really allow you to just go off on multiple theories as to what's going to happen. So I really like that. I loved Kilgrave in this. I loved his despicableness in all of it in terms of the hedge clippers, the blender, the standard, the railings forever, all of that, and all topped off with a big cherry on top, with the massive fight scene at the end. You know, the ex-lovers, the fact that it completely pulled the rug from everything that Luke had said in the episode up till that point, that he was suddenly now, it was all Kilgrave. You know, these were my lines. Did you like all of that? And the big scrap and fight at the end. Really, really enjoyed it. I think if there's any minute slight of negativity in this, it would be to do with just being pulled out of the moment with Malcolm and Robin. I really still enjoyed those scenes. I think, as you had said, Derek, I think they could have just been brought into the show earlier. The fact that, you know, these are all slightly different lengths, each of these episodes, you know, cutting that back a bit and introducing it into other episodes could have worked in the Netflix sense, because they don't all have to be 44 minutes long. Some are 55, some are 50.
Yeah.
You know, they are different lengths. So that could have just been done earlier, but I liked those scenes as well. So that's why it's just a small little niggle for me. But overall, absolutely thought this was a really solid thing. And I think it probably will reflect nicely with the finale as well, which I suspect will be an all-out affair. So really good, really defend this episode. Chris, do you defend this episode?
I'm just really happy I Kilgraved you into saying a negative point about this episode. Yes.
How did Chris do that?
And now, look.
It's the pheromones.
But I just want to say, I'm saying a negative thing there, but I don't mean that the episode was bad.
Absolutely.
No, I know.
I'm saying it's still an amazingly great episode and really solid. And I think, again, it's a relative thing. It's just because it is all so good. You sometimes, things that do just kind of make you, it's not even that they're bad. That suddenly, maybe they just fall slightly flat in your own interpretation of things. Suddenly you get sort of magnified in your head as being something negative, and they might not be. So everyone out there, I'm not No, but like...
No.
So, yeah, so it's just a slight negative, but I love this episode.
It's why it's not a 5 out of 5, basically.
But is there ever going to be one?
You never
Maybe,
know.
when I look back.
Or we watch the finale.
Dun, dun, dun.
For me, I think I said at the very beginning, I was surprised how subdued, a quarter, half of this episode was. It was plodding. It was slightly slow. Now, I get they were trying to wrap things up. I'm sorry. Still didn't like that scene. I think I agree now. Like, they could have put it earlier. The more we talked about it, okay, yes, maybe in a different part of the episode or, different episode, it would have made more sense and I would have been happy. Great. We're trying to get Malcolm to a better point. Okay, good. I get that. We're happy. Just, it slowed it down a bit too much. But getting to the good part, it made up for it. It made up for everything. The fight scene, the aha moment, the reveal, it was just so well done. Like, even the lighting. I don't think I've ever talked about that since back Daredevil days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, they had the purple, the hue to the club, and the purple lights outside, and blue, going blue and purple, blue and purple.
Yeah.
Like, it was just fantastic.
It was almost like his lair,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. It was like, that cheese. No, not cheesy. That I was gonna go. You remember like Mr. Freeze lair and Batman and Robin? It could have been that bad, but they didn't. It was just a nice hue of purple. So it was brilliant. So if I had to, I'd give this 4 out of 5 bloody punches of Luke. Like, to Jessica. Like, it was just, like, he went to town. But then she took all of it, and it was great. Like, so close to flight. We're going to argue about this off air, I know this. It's like, it was a flight. It was a jump. It was so, for me, it was great. It was, I think, again, this is a byproduct of us watching, recording. I would have binged.
Yeah.
Like, you know how like, listeners, if you really want to really hurt yourself, watch, like, the penultimate finale of something like this. And then when Netflix goes, continue watching in 2015, I'm like, if I forget to press stop, like, maybe it's not my fault. The computer did it.
And just another point for listeners who don't know Chris, if you just listen to his podcast, Chris watches a lot of television like we do, but you're definitely a binge watcher of TV shows. A lot of times you'll wait for episodes to build up. You won't watch them all on a weekly basis. You'll wait for 4 or 5 to build up and then watch 5 back to back. Generally something I don't do. I generally do watch TV on a weekly basis. So that's kind of what I've forced the guys to do for these episodes. But this is tough.
But like for me, like the Doctor Who, I have 3 Doctor Who's plus the Christmas special.
Right.
I've brought them all together because I know I'm going to watch one and I know there's 1 or 2 cross like 2-parters and then there's Christmas special. I'm like, I'm spending a 5-hour session one day going to do that. This was hard because they went from a slow start, which nothing wrong with it. It was just it was investigatory. If it had been in episode 8, the first half of episode 8, it would have been perfect because it was just it. But then they arced up to such an amazing level. I was like, God damn you, I want to watch the next part and see what happens. Even though
I like that that's directed at me.
Yeah.
Right there.
But it was okay, and I'm gonna wrap up. I'm not even gonna like the complaint of Luke Cage not dying, that hasn't factored into it. Like, that is a big thing to show how good this episode is. And how well it was stitched to you wanting to watch the next one straight away. Because you just don't think. You're like, oh my god, did he actually? Oh my god. Tell me more. So, yes, if I had to, 4.4 out of 5. It's a one of the must watch. Just bear with it. Okay, Derek, and to wrap this up, tell us what you thought.
Of course I defend this episode. Of course I do. It's an excellent episode. I was lucky enough to be able to watch this twice this week before recording the podcast. Watched it the first time and thought it was quite a little bit slow. Watched it the second time knowing the reveal and thought, this is amazing. I love how they've set everything up from the first conversation in the car between Luke and Kilgrave, that throwaway line that he says, you know, what am I going to do now to repay that compliment, essentially, or to repay that comment that you've made to me. Loved it. Loved the episode. Loved everything about it. Loved the fight scene at the end, obviously. Loved the little touch of Robin, still, you know, a person who was crazy before we met her, essentially, now having the backlash from what happened to her with Kilgrave, where she's suspecting a delivery person of coming to her door as being a hired assassin for Kilgrave, or an assassin of Kilgrave. I thought that was a great little touch. Lovely touches throughout this episode, really tying up the loose ends that we've gotten to lead into probably what's going to be a pretty big finale. Still don't expect there's going to be a huge fight scene between Kilgrave and Jessica in the final episode, but I like that we've tied a lot up to set up this final episode as being a great one. And another brilliant episode from the makers of this show. Really, really enjoyed it. So we'll be back again next week with the next episode of our Jessica Jones coverage, our final episode called AKA Smile. I think we have a little bit of feedback to close out this episode then. So our first bit of feedback comes from Sylvie Carbonneau, who got in contact with us on Twitter. She says, I listened to your review of episode 11 of Jessica Jones today. I really share your thoughts about this one. About 3.5 out of 5, with a bit of a plus for Trish, obviously.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Sylvie. Yeah, it was a really good introduction and fight scene from Trish. I mean, that was one aspect of it that I absolutely loved. So definitely, it really helped pull the episode up, definitely. But it was another one of those great episodes because of the different things going on in it. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Viva la Hellcat.
Yeah, Hellcat forever.
Cool. Some other feedback that we got over on flickeringmyth.com, where our episodes are also posted. LK has been posting some comments over on flickeringmyth.com on our episodes posted there. We're really sorry that we haven't actually gotten back to these for the last couple of months. So just a couple of quick comments from LK. The first one he left for us on episode 6 review. He says, there's a bit of an irony there. Kilgrave won the hand of cards with a 2 of hearts. Nice little touch there. He says, I've no problem with Kilgrave wanting to play cards, and then at the end, once the pot is big enough, getting bored and saying it's time to go. So this was the episode where Kilgrave wins his huge pot of money to buy Jessica Jones's house.
Yeah, I think we would all like to do that, to be honest. At least win, probably honestly, in a game of poker. I mean, to be honest, for me, to win any game of poker, or even remember the rules. But yeah, it's a really nice little spot there on the 2 of hearts as well. So yeah, thanks so much, LK.
Yeah, and about episode 9, LK also says, wow, you guys are harsh. This was possibly my favourite episode of the series. Chris?
Yes, Chris. You were harsh.
I'm not.
You guy
Yes.
was
Yes.
harsh.
Yeah, no, that's all me. Okay, yep, that's all me.
Yeah, I loved episode 9.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still not. I'm not going to go back. We must not focus on the past, but look forward to the future.
Absolutely. And the final piece of feedback from LK says, Kilgrave only told Clemens to get her off me, detective, which he did. Nice little touch there. So that was about the detective who was told by Kilgrave. We thought he was told to kill Jessica, and you were wondering, Chris, whether he would have tried to kill her for the rest of the episode. The specific direction given by Kilgrave was get her off me, detective, which nice little touch.
Okay,
Thanks
yeah.
so much for
Cheers,
catching that.
LK,
Okay.
yeah. I fully take everything I said back in half that episode then. No, well, around that point.
And our final piece of feedback comes from Cassandra Atticum, speaking about episode 8. Cassandra points out that in the comic book Alias, Jessica actually says that the Purple Man never touched her. She emphatically denies it. She says he makes her watch and beg for it, basically in punishment for being a superhero. Yeah, we spoke about that in one of our other episodes, that we are aware that there was never any actual rape. There was never, from the Purple Man in the comic books, of Jessica, but of other people, essentially, through the comic books. The show seems to have taken a bit of a different tack. Although, up to episode 12, we actually have never seen a scene or a flashback to Jessica in a bed or anything like that. Very little of physical contact between herself and Kilgrave. There has been a lot of discussion about the mental impact of what he does to her throughout the series, more so than the actual rape itself. But yeah, thanks very much for that point, Cassandra. very good of you to leave that feedback. If you want to send in direct feedback to us, send it to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. You can join us over on our Facebook group. Just search Defenders TV Podcast, obviously. Join the group. We do have a page over there, but that's mostly where our news and our episodes are posted. The real discussion happens within the group. Just get in contact with us.
And remember, subscribe and follow us on iTunes at defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or again, search Defenders TV Podcast on any other good podcast catcher and subscribe to us. Or, in fact, leave a review so that others can find us and the word spreads as we move into the final episode.
Yeah, I think we can close it out there. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you again next week on episode 43, which is Jessica Jones, episode 13, aka Smile.
Thank you so much for listening, and in particular for my bad accents. Smell you later.
And now, just because John talked about bad accents.
Ta! Bye.
Hi there, this is Derek, just jumping back in after we finished our editing of the podcast. We just heard the news that Jessica Jones has got a season 2 from Netflix, with the announcement on Twitter from the Jessica Jones handle. They provided a phone number that you can call and hear a very special message from Jessica Jones herself of Alias Investigations. Here it is for you, though, in case you're not able to dial the phone number.
Alias Investigations. We've got cases and shit, so leave a message.
Record your message at the tone. Press any key or stop talking to end the recording.
We're obviously really excited to see what's up for Jessica Jones in season 2. We did record our finale podcast as well prior to the announcement of season 2, so you will hear some thoughts next week on what we think could come in season 2 if it gets announced. But you know now, season 2 is coming. But we'll talk to you next week for our finale review.
This has been a Flickering Myth Podcast Network production. For more information, head over to flickeringmyth.com for more shows like it. Find this show in iTunes by searching for the podcast name, and head over to youtube.com/flickeringmyth to subscribe to the Flickering Myth movie show. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye bye.